He handed me a damn contract. That was my wedding gift. A printed, bullet-pointed, two-page list titled Expectations for a Stable Marriage, folded neatly and slid into my hand like it was normal. My name's Brian. I'm 33. Live outside Richmond, Virginia. Work in logistics, freight routing, inventory systems. I'm a quiet guy. Good with numbers, bad with people. Jen, my wife, she's the opposite. 31, lawyer, fast-talking, opinionated, sharp as hell. We dated 4 years before getting married. I thought I knew her. I thought I knew what I was marrying into. We kept the wedding simple, small lodge in the Shenandoah area. Her family flew in from Chicago. My folks live nearby, so it wasn't a big fuss. Ceremony went smooth. Reception was casual, nothing fancy. Barbecue, drinks, a little dancing. I was actually enjoying it. Then Rick showed up. Her dad. Slick gray suit, polished shoes. Same smug smirk he'd worn at the rehearsal dinner. Guy owns a chain of auto parts stores and walks into every room like it's a boardroom. He pulled me aside behind the catering tent. I figured he had an envelope or some advice. Instead, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "Thought I'd give you something useful." He handed me that list. "Quick note, before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from?" I opened it, 11 bullet points. Stuff like, major financial decisions require my approval. Family holidays will default to my property. Parenting should follow established household values. There was even one about running all home improvement plans through him. I stared at it, waiting for the punchline. He wasn't smiling, not joking. "Things run better when there's a leader," he said, like he was quoting scripture. "Just ask my wife." I didn't know what to say. I just nodded, folded it, and shoved it in my pocket. We took the group photos, cut the cake. Jen looked beautiful, laughing with her sister under the string lights. I kept my mouth shut until we were back in the suite that night. I showed her the list. She read the title and blinked. Read it all the way through. Didn't laugh once. Growing up, we didn't challenge stuff like that. Rick called the shots and nobody questioned him. I'd stopped noticing it, but Jen noticed. I saw it in her face. Her jaw clenched, her eyes cold. That's when it hit me. She wasn't going to roll with anything. Not like I had. Not ever. And Rick, he'd just declared war. He just didn't know it yet. Jen didn't say a word about the list the rest of the wedding night, or the honeymoon. We flew out to Arizona for a week, hiked, ate too much, got sunburned. Everything felt normal, easy. I figured she'd let it go. I was wrong. About a week after we got back, she came home early from work with a manila folder in her hand and a look I hadn't seen before. Cold, focused, not angry, just done playing. "I talked to a family law attorney in Richmond," she said, setting the folder on the table. I showed her the list. I didn't say anything, just sat down. She said none of it's legally enforceable, but if Rick tries to push anything, finances, property, kids, we have the right to shut it down. No confusion, no gray area. I opened the folder. Inside was a printed letter, formal, polite, but solid. It basically said, "This marriage is ours. We make decisions together. Advice is fine, but control is not." It wasn't a threat, but it was a shot across the bow. "Do we send this?" I asked. Jen didn't blink. "We hold on to it, for now." 2 months later, Rick called and invited us over. Said he wanted to help with the house search. His words, not mine. We'd just started looking, nothing serious yet, but he acted like he was already on the board of directors. We pulled up to his house in Chesterfield around 6. His wife, Linda, met us at the door, quiet as usual. We walked into the dining room and saw the setup. Full-on pitch mode, mortgage calculators on the laptop, neighborhood stats printed out, lender contact sheets. He even had a whiteboard on an easel with potential equity growth written at the top. Jen didn't react, not even a fake smile. She just pulled out the folder, opened it, and slid the letter across the table like a dealer laying down an ace. Rick picked it up, adjusted his glasses, and read it. Top to bottom, no interruptions. When he finished, he folded it, set it down next to his calculator, and looked up. Nothing on his face, not anger, not amusement, just blank. He nodded once. That was it. I had never, not once, seen Rick quiet. Not in 4 years. Not even for 10 seconds. But that night, he didn't argue. Didn't challenge a word. On the way home, I drove. Jen stared out the window, arms crossed. I thought about saying something, but didn't. Not yet. Instead, I felt this strange pressure lift off my chest, like someone cracked a window in a sealed room. I hadn't even realized how much space Rick took up in my head until that moment. Always circling, always weighing whether he'd approve, whether I'd mess something up. That night, back at our apartment, Jen took off her heels and tossed them by the door. She didn't look at me when she said, "That's round one." I nodded. I didn't know what the hell round two would look like, but I knew she'd be ready. And this time, I was starting to be too. I expected things to calm down after the mortgage conversation. They didn't. We bought the house not long after. 3 bedrooms, a big yard that needed mowing, an attic that smelled like old summers. Roof needed work, but the bones were right. It felt like the first real thing Jen and I owned together, not some stopgap apartment or my mom's spare room. At first, Rick kept his distance. Maybe he was sizing it up. Maybe he thought showing restraint would get him more leverage later. Whatever. He didn't say much the first month. Then the comments started like small pebbles hitting the porch roof. "Those pipes'll need redoing. I hope you knew that," he said the first time he came by to look. "Don't sign any Reno contracts before I review them," he added like it was friendly advice. I laughed it off. Jen didn't. She stiffened, the way she did at court when someone tried to steamroll a witness. I wanted to tell her to relax, that it was nothing. Instead, I found myself answering for him, making excuses he didn't deserve. That felt wrong in my gut. When Jen's sister Katie had a baby, the next level of Rick showed up. He went full dictator grandfather overnight. He started turning up at Katie's house, unannounced, bringing diapers and color-coded outfits like he was assembling a government. He told them how to feed the baby, argued with a lactation consultant, and tried to set a nap schedule for a child that was 2 weeks old. One Sunday dinner, the whole family squeezed around our table, mashed potatoes, my brother's awful casserole. He turned to Jen with that same smirk. "When you two have kids," he said, slow and deliberate, "we'll do it the right way. I'll get you on a schedule. We'll use my pediatrician. I've already got daycares shortlisted." The words sat in the air like bitter smoke. For a second, nothing moved. I stared at my plate, spoon frozen over gravy, hearing the clink of silverware like it was coming from another room. Jen froze too, but she managed a smile, tight, brittle, practiced. "That's a long way off," she said. I wanted to laugh then, to make it smaller. Instead, the smile dropped off my face like a mask. I could tell she wasn't joking. That night, when the dishes were done and the house hummed with the quiet that comes after everyone leaves, Jen sat across from me at the kitchen table. The single bulb over the sink cast everything in plain relief. Her hands were wrapped around a mug, and she didn't look at me like she used to look on weekends. Warm, amused. She looked resolute. "I'm not having kids with your dad in the picture like this," she said flat. The words hit clean. I felt the floor tilt under me. "I don't know how to stop him," I said before I could stop myself. It was true. I didn't know where to draw the line without breaking something I'd always accepted as normal. She set the mug down and rubbed her thumb along the rim like she was sharpening a blade. "Then I will." She stood up at the same time, quick and deliberate, and walked to the phone on the wall. Her movement was small, ordinary, but it carried the weight of a decision being made. She punched in a number like she was engraving a date in concrete. I watched her fingers, felt my throat tighten, and knew whatever that call started, it wasn't going to be gentle. She didn't say much after the call, just hung up, walked past me, and went straight to bed. I stood in the kitchen a while, lights off, fridge humming behind me. I knew something had shifted. I just didn't know where it would land. A month later, Rick sent me an email. Subject line, "Family support opportunity." That alone made me want to close the laptop, but I opened it. The message was short, almost friendly. "Brian, I'd like to help you two pay down the mortgage. Take a chunk of pressure off. In exchange, I'd like my name added to the deed. Purely precautionary, in case something ever happens. Helps with family security. Let me know." I stared at the screen like it was in another language. It sounded generous, too generous. My first instinct? Forward it to Jen. But I hesitated, just for a second. Less debt sounded like relief, like space to breathe. What was the harm? I brought it up that night. We were in the kitchen again. Always the damn kitchen. And I said, careful, "Hey, got an email from your dad. He wants to help pay off part of the mortgage." Jen didn't even blink. "What's the catch?" I scratched my neck. He wants to be on the deed." She stopped chopping vegetables mid-slice, knife flat on the cutting board. "You want him owning part of our house?" "No, I thought we could at least talk about it." She turned and looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "Brian, it's not a gift, it's a leash." I felt my voice go up before I could stop it. "It's just paperwork. It doesn't mean he controls anything. That's exactly what it means, she snapped. Don't you get it? He doesn't want to help us. He wants to own something, tie himself to us legally. This isn't about money, it's about control. It exploded from there, our worst fight yet. No yelling, not at first. Just cold, sharp words, low and cutting. She accused me of still looking for his approval. I told her she didn't understand how families like mine worked. She said maybe that was the damn problem. I said she was reading too much into it. She said I wasn't reading enough into anything. I ended up in the garage, sitting on a box of winter coats, palms sweating. I felt stuck between the man who raised me and the woman who'd married me, knowing full well what kind of strings came attached. Next morning, I walked into the kitchen and told her, all right, no deal, I get it now. She didn't say anything right away, just nodded once and slid her coffee across the table toward me. I took a sip. It tasted like a truce. We emailed him together. One line, thanks for the offer, but we'll manage the mortgage on our own. No reply, not a text, not a call, not even a snide suit yourself, just dead air. But it didn't feel like silence. It felt like a drawbridge pulling up behind us. He stopped pretending after that. No more friendly comments, no more phony advice. Just that slow, deliberate withdrawal that told me exactly where I stood. To him, I'd picked my side. And to Rick, that made me a traitor. Jen, she was just the one who led the rebellion. I wasn't afraid yet, but I could feel it coming. I felt it before she even told me. Something had shifted again. Jen came home, dropped her bag by the door, and went straight to the sink to wash her hands. I followed her into the kitchen and asked, everything all right? She dried her hands on a dish towel, then looked me dead in the eye. Your dad called me. That pulled the air out of the room. What did he want? Said he wanted to talk, one-on-one, just us. I waited for her to say she told him no. She didn't. So, you went? She nodded. Diner off Route 10, that old one with the faded booths and the sticky tables. She poured herself a glass of water and leaned against the counter. Her voice was flat, but her jaw was tight. He was already sitting when I got there. Corner booth, black coffee, no food. Looked like he was waiting to interrogate someone. I stayed quiet. He leaned in like a mob boss, said, this family works best when I'm in charge. Then told me I had two options. Keep fighting him or start working with him. I blinked. He actually said that, word for word. I sat down at the table and rubbed my temples. What did you say? Jen didn't miss a beat. I said, difficult for who? Then I got up and walked out. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. She set her glass down and looked at me hard. I'm done waiting for him to cross lines, she said. I'm locking them down. Financials, property, medical stuff, everything. That night she called her lawyer again. Didn't ask me if I agreed, just told me what was happening, and I didn't argue. I think I was past pretending we could fix this with polite smiles and boundary letters. Next morning, my phone buzzed. Group text. Rick had sent it. Family meeting tonight. Non-negotiable. Attendance required. No location, no explanation. Just a command, like we were his employees clocking in. I showed Jen. She didn't even flinch. You gonna go? I asked. Are you? I didn't answer. We both knew we were going. I don't know what I expected from that message. Some olive branch, some warped apology wrapped in a lecture, but I should have known better. Rick wasn't backing down. This wasn't a meeting. It was a test, and I was already tired of failing. We pulled into Rick's driveway just past 6. Jen didn't say a word the whole ride. Neither did I. She was gripping the folder in her lap so tight her knuckles were white. I kept my hands at 10 and 2, like we were headed into a storm and the road was about to crack open. Inside, everyone was already seated. Rick at the head of the dining table, his wife quiet next to him, shoulders stiff like she was trying to disappear. My brothers sat across from each other, both staring at thick stacks of stapled paper, like they were studying for a final they hadn't signed up for. Rick stood up when we walked in. Glad you made it, he said, like we were late for a board meeting. Jen didn't answer. She pulled out a chair and sat. I followed. He cleared his throat and started passing out copies. The cover page read, Family Operating Agreement. Clean font, bold, structured, corporate. No one said a damn word. He took his seat and said, calm as ever. This will help us stay coordinated. Property, finances, holidays, family decisions. My stomach turned. Not because he was being harsh, because he was being calm. That's when Rick was most dangerous. He kept listing sections like it was normal. Section 3, all family-owned property improvements to require majority group approval. Section 5, Child-rearing decisions shall reflect shared family values. Section 7. Financial assistance from family members includes shared oversight rights. Jen closed her copy. Hard. This isn't happening. She said it like a judge reading a sentence. Rick didn't flinch, just smirked and said, "Just trying to keep order. Nobody else has a problem with it." My brothers said nothing. One looked down, the other looked straight ahead. Even his wife didn't speak, just blinked, slow and blank, like her batteries were low. I sat there frozen. I knew what Jen wanted, for me to say something, to back her up, to throw the damn folder in Rick's face and walk out with her. But I didn't. I couldn't move. Jen stood up. She didn't slam the chair back, didn't raise her voice. She just looked at me once, one long second, and walked out the front door. I didn't follow. That night, she didn't come home. Slept at her friend's place in Mechanicsville. Texted once to say she was safe. No emoji. No love you. Just safe. The next morning, she called her lawyer again. She wasn't playing defense anymore. She told them to draw up full legal blocks. No contact clauses, property protections, directives in case of medical emergencies, power of attorney restrictions. It was like building a legal firewall between us and Rick, and I knew she was doing it with or without me. I wanted to feel angry or guilty or something, but all I felt was cold, like the air had dropped 10 degrees and I couldn't warm back up. Then her lawyer found something else. She didn't even wait to call. She drove straight home and walked in with papers in her hand, eyes sharp like glass. "Sit down," she said, and I did. Because whatever was in those documents wasn't just going to shift things. It was going to break them wide open. Jen dropped the papers in front of me and said, "You're not going to like this." I scanned the first page. Email headers, mortgage broker's name at the top. And there it was. Rick's email, CC'd, not once, 4 separate times. One thread was about escrow adjustments. Another about tax reassessments, the most recent. Our payment schedule and balance summary, sent just 2 weeks earlier. My stomach turned. "He's been getting updates on the house?" I asked, voice flat. She nodded. "Since day one. Your dad referred us to this guy, remember?" Yeah, I remembered. Rick said he'd get us a family-friendly rate. What we got was a spy with a company email. Jen sat down, rubbing her temple. "Legal? Maybe? Ethical? Hell no." I didn't argue. I couldn't. She brought the emails to the lawyer that same afternoon. They said we had grounds to file a formal complaint. Maybe more if we pushed it. But before we did anything, Rick reached out, texted both of us. "Dinner? My treat. Let's clear the air." He picked a steakhouse off I-95, the kind with leather booths and overpriced sides. We showed up early. He was already seated, glass of whiskey in hand, grinning like he hadn't just been caught monitoring our finances like a debt collector. We sat, didn't order drinks. He played nice through the appetizers. Talked about work, football, inflation, like we were old friends catching up. Jen didn't bite, neither did I. Then came dessert. Cheesecake hit the table, and Rick pulled out a manila envelope. "Just business," he said, sliding it across to us. "I want to make this official, co-ownership. It'll help with tax advantages and future protections. It's a smart move." Jen didn't flinch. She reached across, pushed the envelope right back, and said one word. "No." That was it. No raised voices, no angry retorts. Just no, like she'd rehearsed it 100 times. Rick looked at me like I'd been taken hostage, like maybe I'd finally gone too far down Jen's path to be saved. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. In that moment, I saw it plain. This man would never stop. Not because he was cruel, because control was all he knew. He didn't understand boundaries. He only understood ownership. Jen, she was done negotiating. That steakhouse table was the last offer he'd get. On the way home, the silence in the car didn't feel tense. It felt clean, like a cleared field after a storm. She kept her eyes on the road and said, "Next move's mine." 2 days after the steakhouse, Jen stood at the sink, drying a wine glass, and said, "We're hosting dinner Saturday. Everyone. Your mom, your brothers, Rick, all of them." I didn't ask why. I didn't have to. I just nodded and said I'd make the calls. She planned everything down to the last damn detail. Roast chicken, garlic potatoes, green beans with those toasted almonds she knew my mom liked. She even played that soft background playlist we always used for company, the one with old Motown and clean jazz that made everything feel less heavy. But it was heavy. The air in the house had weight that night. I could feel it before the doorbell even rang. I saw the folder the second I walked into the kitchen. thick, sealed, sitting on the counter like a loaded weapon. By 7, everyone was there. My brothers made small talk about football. My mom complimented the tablecloth. Rick cracked open a bottle of wine without asking and made himself at home in the center seat like he always did. Jen smiled, passed dishes, kept the conversation light. No one mentioned the last few months. No one asked about lawyers or emails. It was like everyone agreed to pretend until dessert. Jen stood up, walked over to the counter, and picked up the folder. "Before we do dessert," she said, calm and steady, "we need to clear something up." She walked over to Rick and set the folder down right in front of him. "Inside is every email from your mortgage guy, the contract you slid across the table last week, the list you gave Brian at our wedding, records of you inserting yourself where you weren't invited." Rick didn't touch it, just looked at her with that same tired smirk he always wore when he thought someone was being dramatic. Jen didn't blink. "You're out. No involvement in our home, our finances, our future. You try again, and we go legal." There was a second, just a flicker, where Rick looked like he might blow, but instead, he let out a chuckle. "Come on," he said, grinning like this was a misunderstanding. "I was helping. I didn't even look at Jen. I just stood up." "No, you weren't." Every word felt like a release. "You've been running me since I was a kid. You made every decision seem like it was your right, but it's not. We're done." The room went dead quiet. I could hear the hum of the fridge. Then my mom started crying. I turned and saw her hands shaking, napkin clutched between her fingers, tears just running down her face, and she whispered, "I haven't known who I am for 30 years. My older brother stared at the table. The younger one finally spoke. "I thought this was normal." Rick didn't argue. He didn't fight back. He just stood, slow and stiff, grabbed the folder and tucked it under his arm like it belonged to him. He looked at me, then at Jen. No apology, no goodbye. He walked out the front door and didn't shut it behind him. No one moved. No one said a thing for a full minute. After they left, I sat on the couch. My shirt stuck to my back. My head was pounding. Jen came over and sat beside me, close but not touching. I looked at the floor and said, "I should have said something sooner." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "But you said it now," she said, and just like that, the weight cracked. Not gone, but finally starting to shift. The next week was dead quiet. No texts, no emails, no surprise visits, not even a snide voicemail pretending to be civil. It was like Rick had vanished off the map. My chest felt lighter, but my gut, heavy, like I'd buried something deep, not fixed it. Jen didn't say much. She moved slower than usual, still did her workouts, still made coffee, but her eyes stayed tired. She'd been the one holding the line. While I wavered, she braced, took every hit, answered every threat, and still stood up straight. I spent that Monday sorting through old paperwork in the garage, mortgage folders, insurance stuff. All of it had Rick's fingerprints somewhere, his name, his broker, his damn influence on every page. I threw out half of it, burned the rest in the fire pit out back. On Wednesday, Jen called me into the office. She had her laptop open, a weird look on her face. "It's from him," she said. I leaned over her shoulder. It was one line. "I've read everything. I'll keep my distance for now." That was it. No apology, no explanation, no fake charm, just that. Jen didn't say a word. She clicked print, walked over to the filing cabinet, and slid the page into a folder marked Legal, Family. She shut it with one hand, like closing a vault. We had everything now. Paper trails, timelines, receipts. If he ever tried anything again, we wouldn't be caught off guard. That Sunday I sat out back on the porch alone, beer in hand, cold breeze on my neck, sun dropping behind the trees slow enough to watch. It was the first time I really felt like the house belonged to me. No invisible strings, no watching my words, no second-guessing who was listening. Just peace. Later, I walked inside. Jen was folding towels on the couch, hair up in a messy knot, still in her hoodie from that morning's run. I walked over, kissed her on the head, and said, "We made it." She looked up at me, dry smile on her lips. "We made him stop. That's different." I nodded. She wasn't wrong. We hadn't burned the bridge. We blocked the damn road. And if he ever shows up again, we won't be standing in the same place. We'll be ready.